Now let us turn to a story we've been following over the past few hours. The United States is sending extra forces to its embassy in Baghdad after crowds of Iraqi militiamen and their supporters attempted to storm the compound. They were reacting to recent US airstrikes, which killed at least 25 fighters. Some managed to breach the outer wall before tear gas was used to disperse them. Our diplomatic correspondent Paul Adams has more.
Furious crowds and an American embassy, the largest in the world, under siege. Protesters and pro-Iranian militiamen inside Baghdad's protected green zone, venting their anger, attempting to breach the embassy walls. One entrance is pushed open, but the crowd is forced back by tear gas fired from inside. The sentry post is attacked, but this is a heavily fortified compound. The soldiers inside seem alert, but not yet alarmed. Fires are lit outside, the air thick with smoke and anti-American slogans. But the crowd is not huge. Sources inside the compound say the situation appears to be under control. No one has been evacuated. Directing the protests are some of the country's leading Shiite militiamen. They're backed by Iran and deeply hostile towards America.
This embassy has been proved to be an embassy of plotting against Iraq, the embassy of spying on Iraq, and the embassy of running schemes of sabotage in Iraq.
Tensions rose dramatically over the weekend as American warplanes carried out airstrikes against militia targets in Iraq and Syria. At least 25 fighters were killed. The US blamed the pro-Iranian group Kataib Hezbollah for a rocket attack on Friday that killed an American civilian in the northern city of Kirkuk. Donald Trump points the finger at neighbouring Iran. Iran killed an American contractor, he tweeted this morning. We strongly responded and always will. Now Iran is orchestrating an attack on the US embassy in Iraq. They will be held fully responsible. He also warned Iraq to do more to protect the embassy. But Iraq's government is in a bind. The US is still an ally in the fight against so-called Islamic State, but its relationship with Iran is much closer. The embassy is not thought to be in any immediate danger, but American reinforcements have already arrived. US Marines, part of a special crisis response unit, making the short journey from a base in nearby Kuwait. Paul Adams, BBC News.
Breaking tonight, President Trump is blaming Iran for a stunning assault on the United States Embassy in Baghdad. We will speak live with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in a few minutes. Right now, U.S. Marines are on their way to reinforce the embassy, and up to 4,000 troops could deploy to the region. That's according to 3 Defense Department officials. Today in Iraq, no one was hurt, but dozens of protesters smashed the main door and set fire to the reception area amid cries of death to America and death to Israel. The attack comes after U.S. airstrikes killed 25 Iran-backed terrorists. We have Fox team coverage. Kevin Corks in West Palm Beach has more on the administration reaction. We begin with correspondent Trey Yingst in our Middle East newsroom. Good evening, Trey.
Mike, good evening. A tense final day of 2019 in the Middle East as President Trump tweeted tonight, Iran will be held responsible for any deaths or damage that occur as a result of the U.S. Embassy attack. Here's a look at what occurred earlier today. American security forces deploy flash grenades and rubber bullets. Feet away, Iraqi demonstrators smash windows of the American embassy in Baghdad. U.S. Ambassador to Iraq, Matt Toller, was not at the compound, officials confirmed to Fox News, though U.S. security forces worked for hours to defend the structure. As Iraqis stormed the U.S. Embassy, an American Apache helicopter circled the compound, firing flares. The assault on the U.S. Embassy began Tuesday morning after supporters of the Iranian-backed militia group Kataib Hezbollah attended a mass funeral for 25 of their members killed in U.S. airstrikes on Sunday. Emotions were high as funerals got underway, a mixture of militants and civilians, both vowing to respond.
It is flagrant aggression. It is aggression on Iraq's sovereignty. It is a violation of all norms and values. This aggression won't pass unpunished.
The Americans targeted positions of the Iranian-backed group in both Iraq and Syria after a rocket attack on an Iraqi base killed one American contractor stationed there last week. 4 U.S. service members were also injured. Concerned about the situation deteriorating, the Department of Defense sent an additional 100 Marines to bolster security for American diplomats in Iraq. New images show U.S. troops at a base in Kuwait preparing for deployment earlier today while loading magazines and moving gear. A U.S. official telling Fox News today the final decision on if America will respond will be left to President Trump, who is blaming Iran for the assault on the embassy. Iran has denied involvement and is blaming America for, quote, support of terrorism.
We witnessed that all the Iraqi people who have gathered here have condemned the actions of America, the ugly crimes that the U.S. committed.
Striking images today from the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, reminders of past attacks on U.S. diplomats in places like Saigon and Tehran. The world now watches to see how things will resolve this time around. Mike?
Trey, how are the Israelis reacting to the U.S. strikes against this Iranian proxy over the weekend?
Well, those strikes by the United States that left 25 of the members of Kataib Hezbollah dead are seen in Israel as a positive thing. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu actually spoke with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo yesterday, congratulating the Trump administration on those strikes. Remember, Israel has been striking Iranian-backed groups across the Middle East many times over the past year. This is something that is seen as a major threat to the Israeli nation in places like the Gaza Strip, Lebanon, and proxies also in Syria. Mike?
Trey Yanks leading us off live from Jerusalem. Trey, many thanks. President Trump says he will hold Iran responsible for today's incident. Correspondent Kevin Corke has that part of the story tonight from West Palm Beach.
Certainly, it is arguable that the American airstrikes have set off the most serious political crisis in years for the U.S. in Iraq. But what is less clear is whether an apparent wave of anti-Americanism and protests are the result of the strikes or merely a plot by the Iranians to foment distrust and discord in an already fractured Iraq. For U.S. officials, there is little doubt where the blame lies, and that's with Tehran. President Trump today on Twitter accused Iran of killing an American contractor and wounding many. He wrote, "We strongly responded and always will." He then blamed Iran for, quote, orchestrating an attack on the U.S. Embassy in Iraq. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo called the demonstrations Iranian-backed, adding that they should not be confused with the Iraqi protesters who have been in the streets since October to decry the corruption exported to Iraq by the Iranian regime. Defense Secretary Mark Esper added that the Pentagon had taken appropriate force protection actions to ensure the safety of American citizens, military personnel, and diplomats in country, and to ensure our right of self-defense. The U.S. has spent approximately $1.1 trillion on the war in Iraq since its inception, including over $750 million to construct the largest U.S. embassy in the world, an embassy ravaged by protesters deep inside what was supposed to be a fortified green zone, a topic that didn't escape President Trump's attention in his call with Prime Minister al-Mahdi of Iraq. The American leader reminding his counterpart of Iraq's responsibility to protect the embassy and its personnel, or the U.S. will use any means necessary to do so. The challenge for the president and more broadly American officials is getting demonstrative buy-in by the Iraqis, who have said to have been quite stung by the fact that the airstrikes took place on their soil. It's a challenge, but not unlike others in this complicated relationship that can be managed, U.S. officials believe, with time and effort. Mike?
Kevin Corke in West Palm Beach. Kevin, thanks a lot. Let's get the latest from America's top diplomat. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo joins us tonight. Good evening, Mr. Secretary.
Good evening, Mike. Good to be with you.
The images are striking. What is your assessment of what we saw in Baghdad today?
Well, what you saw was Iranian-backed terrorists. Many of them are individuals that have been designated terrorists by the United States and others, coming to the American embassy and posing a risk to American diplomats and personnel inside the embassy. You saw President Trump direct a quick, decisive, prudent response by making sure that we had all the resources necessary to keep our people safe and to secure the compound as well. And as we go into the evening tonight, we're continuing to watch, we're continuing to monitor. As you know, Mike, this is a difficult place, tough terrain, and so we continue to take the situation seriously, and President Trump and our entire team are watching it closely.
Any plans to evacuate the embassy in Baghdad, sir?
None.
Okay. Any plans to pull some of the 5,000 U.S. troops in Iraq out?
None.
Okay. We are reporting that up to 4,000 more troops, 82nd Airborne, could be going into the region to bolster American forces in the region. Is that accurate, sir?
Mike, you have to put this in a larger context. This is 40 years of the Islamic Republic of Iran engaged in global terror campaigns, nuclear weapons dreams, and nuclear enrichment capability existing today. We came in when the previous administration had provided lots of money that was used for that nuclear program, lots of money that had been used for terror all around the world to develop their missile program. Trump administration has taken a very different view. We put real pressure on the Islamic Republic of Iran. We will continue to do so. And as you saw the president say today, we will continue to hold the Islamic Republic of Iran accountable wherever we find their malign activity. And we'll make sure we have the resources to do so.
So is that likely to be more ships in the region, sir, or?
So I'll leave to the Department of Defense to talk about specifics, but make no mistake about what the guidance President Trump has given to both the State Department and the Department of Defense. It's to make sure that we have all that we need to perform the missions that he's set before us with respect to pushing back against the Islamic Republic of Iran.
What's your assessment of the Iraqi government's response to what we saw at the embassy today?
So we worked alongside them today. I early this morning spoke with Prime Minister Abdel Mahdi. I spoke with President Barham Saleh. Later in the day, some of my officials did. The president spoke, as your piece reported, spoke with the Prime Minister late in the day, too. We were urging them to continue to fulfill their responsibility, their obligation to protect our facility and our people. We were happy to see them to deploy forces there to do that. We continue to ask them to do everything it takes to ensure that that facility is protected, as they have an obligation to do.
Is the administration confident the Iraqis can protect U.S. personnel and facilities going forward?
Collectively, we're going to make sure that that gets done. We're going to make sure we do everything we can to keep that facility safe and secure and have the resources to push back against anything that may confront us there.
President Trump tweeted this afternoon, let's put it on the screen, Iran will be held fully responsible for lives lost or damage incurred at any of our facilities. They will pay a very big price. This is not a warning. It is a threat. Happy New Year. Your reaction, sir?
Been working on convincing the Islamic Republic of Iran to behave like a normal nation for the entire 3 years we've been in office. We inherited a terrible nuclear deal. We inherited a terrible situation where the regime had lots of money to go foment bad things around the world. We withdrew from the nuclear deal. We've imposed an incredible economic burden on the regime. We've watched, too, Mike, we've watched the Iranian people demand that their leaders behave differently. You've seen the protests. Unfortunately, the Iranians responded by killing hundreds of their own citizens. But we've watched even in Beirut and in Iraq, even today, we saw protesters today. They weren't covered in your footage. They weren't at the embassy, but we saw protesters, real protesters, not Iranian-backed militiamen who'd been directed to go to the embassy by Qasem Soleimani, but rather real protesters demanding to say that those folks at the embassy, those aren't Iraqis. Those aren't Iraqi people. They're not people who care about Iraq. We care about Iraq, and we want an Iraq that is free, independent, and sovereign. And the United States, under President Trump, will continue to work on that project.
We reported at the top 100 U.S. Marines going to the embassy. Their role there, sir?
The role there is security and deterrence, to ensure that we have the resources available to combat anything that should come at the embassy, but also to signal very clearly to those who might think about bringing harm to our facility, to our people, that they ought to think twice. These are very capable young men prepared to deliver real force if that's what's called upon.
Are other assets likely to go into Iraq if necessary?
Absolutely. If required, I'm confident President Trump will authorize whatever it takes to keep American young men and women safe wherever we find them, not only at our embassy, but at the other locations and facilities we have with our Americans today.
Now that ISIS is largely defeated, is it your sense that the Iranians really want the United States out of the region, so there's a big void there?
You know, I think they probably do, but more than that, the Islamic Republic of Iran has had a singular mission, right? They're kleptocrats, they're theocrats. They want to steal stuff, loot, and destroy the lives of their own people. And they do that. They think they're protecting themselves by committing terror all around the world, by assassinating people in Europe. The Islamic Republic of Iran has fundamentally failed the Iranian people, and I am convinced that the Iranian people know that. And you've seen President Trump make very clear, we will continue to support the Iranian people.
You made it clear the United States is not going anywhere in terms of its resources there. What do you think would happen if the United States were to leave Iraq?
I don't want to engage in hypothetical. We're engaged. You talked about ISIS. We're still there, working to build out the Iraqi security forces to conduct the counter-ISIS campaign. There's still a threat from terrorism in parts of Iraq and in Anbar province and other places. President Trump is committed to completing that mission. We talked about this in the context of Syria several months back, which says, well, the caliphate is gone. President Trump put together a strategy that delivered the destruction and defeat 100% lock, stock, and barrel of the caliphate. Now we have a responsibility to ensure that the remnants of ISIS can't harm us here in the United States of America.
Are more airstrikes likely, sir, on Iranian-backed assets in the region?
I don't comment on future activity, only say simply that we're committed to the project that we began when we made the policy decision at President Trump's direction that we were going to push back against the Islamic Republic of Iran to create stability throughout the Middle East. We're still fully committed to that mission set.
I know you have a busy schedule planned for the start of 2020, including going to Ukraine. Is this situation likely to disrupt your planning at this point?
Well, I'm hoping I can still fulfill those commitments. I'm headed to Ukraine and then to Central Asia and then on to Cyprus. But I'll make sure I'm in the right place to ensure that our people, the people of the State Department and Americans, are safe and secure in the Middle East. And if that means I have to change or delay my trip for a bit, that's what I'll do.
There was a bulletin a short time ago from North Korean leaders saying the world will see new strategic weapon in near future. Your assessment of that, sir?
So seeing that reporting publicly, remains the case that we hope that Chairman Kim will take a different course. President Trump came into office with the threat of war with North Korea real and a true concern for the American people. He took a tack which said we can deliver a better outcome for the people of North Korea. We're hopeful that Chairman Kim will make the right decision. He'll choose peace and prosperity over conflict and war. I saw that reporting. I hope he doesn't go in that direction.
Secretary Pompeo, Happy New Year. Thanks for your time, sir.
Happy New Year, Mike.
Safe travels.
Thank you, sir.